Hi folks, we are here in week 4 of our distance learning, which means we are into our final variation. This is definitely the most difficult one out of all of them, so we're going to get right into playing it from top to bottom, okay? So I have my metronome going, 60 beats per minute, and let's play it through. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there you go. There it is from top to bottom. Now, this one has a lot going on, okay? This is, I will tell you, this is the first one that actually, before I sat down to play for you, I actually had to sit through and do some pretty good practicing on it. Truthfully, the other ones, there was maybe a little part here, a little part here that I had to work on, but for the most part, I just sat down and sight read it. This one, I knew ahead of time that I was going to have to work on it. So, let's get into it, okay? The first couple measures are nothing too crazy. In fact, the only thing you want to look out for in the first two measures are in that scale going down, it skips a note between the first two notes, and then in the scale going up, it does the same thing. Or rather, it skips a note between the last note going down and then the first note going up. So you can see that it's not quite a scale, and your brain is just going to look at that and automatically think, oh, it's a scale, and you're going to try to play it through. But you have those skipped notes in there, so you're going to want to make sure that you're paying attention. Now, I'm going to go and slow my metronome down here to 45 for all the practicing bits. So let's just do those first couple measures here, okay? 1, 2, here we go. 2, again, and now you heard that little wrong note right at the very beginning. You got to make sure that you're getting into a habit of going through things even when you do make that mistake. In this case, what I was practicing was the scale. So did I honk that first note? Yeah. And if I was really making my recording right now, I probably would have stopped, just because it is the very first note. But in this case, my practicing was on the 16ths, so it was fine. It wasn't my goal anyway. Let's do those first couple measures now a little bit faster. I'm going to put it up to 52 beats per minute. 2, 3, and 2, again, and okay, so once you get the notes in there, the scale but missing a couple notes, that one's fine, okay? Now, measure 3, the third measure, or actually 25/6, measure 27 overall. This is the beast. This is actually the hardest measure in the whole thing, or at least it was for me, okay? So what you have here are these intervals, right? Okay, you have your first note down to a steady bottom note, top note down to a steady bottom note, and so on, okay? So here's what I do to practice this. First, again, I slow my metronome down. I'm using 45 as my slow tempo. You can use whatever you want. 40, 35, doesn't matter, okay? So I have my metronome going. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the important notes, which is, what are they? They're the moving notes. So in this case, it's the top notes, okay? Now, if I take out all those bottom 16th notes, all I have rhythmically is 1 and a 2 and a 1. That's going into the first note of measure 28. So I'm looking at measure 27, and I'm only playing the moving notes. I'm not playing that bottom note that just stays the same, okay? So I'm doing this to make sure that I know what it sounds like. So here's my moving notes only. 2, 3, and again. 1 more. Okay? Really important. Whenever you have anything musically like this, where that bottom note, or sometimes it's a top note, but in this case it's a bottom note, it just stays the same all the way through. That's just in there to be fancy, okay? That's just in there to show off a little bit. But that does mean that you have to make sure you know what those top notes sound like. All right? Those are the ones that I really want to hear. That's why they have the accents on them. Okay? Now, before I put this together rhythmically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the metronome off. I'm not even going to turn it on. And I'm just going to play it one note at a time, making sure I'm getting all the correct notes. Okay? I'm going to do that again. Now I'm actually going to keep that going, and every time I'm going to do it a little bit faster. I'm not necessarily trying to do it rhythmically, just a little faster each time. Some of you maybe noticed that I'm still trying to put a little bit of an accent on the top note, and that's just to make sure that it's easier for me to do later. So here I go again, a little bit faster. Again, a little faster. Now I'm really starting to exaggerate not only an accent on top, but I'm trying to play the bottom note not so strong. Okay? So I can really hear the moving line. Now, I gotta be careful. If I try to go too fast too soon, it just turns into a slop fest. It turns into fracked notes, wrong fingers all over the place. It's not working. I have to go slow. This is not something you're going to sit down and just crank out in one day. This is something you have to do one day at one tempo, maybe a little bit faster. The next day, a little bit faster. The next day, a little bit faster. This is something that builds as it goes, okay? So just that measure plus a note. Just that measure plus a note, I'm at 45 beats per minute, okay? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1, 2, here I go. Again. One more. And I'm going to pick the tempo up a little, 52 beats per minute. 2, 3, and. Last one. Now, if you heard, I almost blooped it right there at the end. And it was honestly because I was already starting to think about the next tempo that I was going to play this at. So I stopped paying attention just for a second, not even, and I almost lost it. So you want to keep your focus on here. So I'm going to go ahead and put it at 60 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, see, that one didn't work out, so I'm going to keep it going. Maybe at this tempo, I still need more practice. That's okay. 2, 3. And I can tell you, every time that I make a goof on this, it's because I'm thinking about something that's not what I'm playing. I'm already trying to think ahead to what comes next, instead of keeping myself in the moment, okay? Now, let's connect those two measures. Since we're back to practice mode, I'm going to slow it back down to 45. So it's the interval measure that we were just doing, plus the one right after it. Watch out for that concert B natural in the middle of the measure there, okay? In fact, just that measure, measure 28. Here I go. let's put those two together, okay? 27 and 28. 2, 3, and. Two, again, and. Now, like I said, I'm using 45, but I've also already spent quite a bit of time practicing this. If you're just starting out, don't be afraid to put that metronome at whatever slower tempo you want, okay? If you go slower, you'll get there faster. The next measure right after that is the other hard one, okay? The others, all those things at the end are actually all pretty straightforward and easy. This is the other one. And for me, it's because of the leap. It's that octave leap in the middle. Now, depending on your instrument, that octave leap might be a little bit different. It might actually go down instead of up, depending. Mine goes up in the middle, and it's one that I have to look out for. So again, I'm going to just play it one note at a time. And in fact, for me, because this does get into my upper register, what I'm going to do, and brass players, I maybe recommend this, play that all down the octave, just to make sure you know what it sounds like, okay? So here's measure 29. It's the one right down there. Measure 29, and I'm going to play it one note at a time. This is just the first half of the measure. The second half of the measure is just some chromatic stuff, so I'm not really worried about it. So here's down an octave, one note at a time. Again. Now, I'm going to do that same thing, but I'm going to go ahead and take it up the octave. You know, my upper octave note didn't come out so well. So maybe what I'm going to do first, again, brass players are probably going to struggle with this a little bit more than the woodwinds, but maybe I'm just going to make sure I have that top note solid. There we go. Okay. So I have it happening now. In fact, maybe I just practice the octave leap. Just to make sure I have that. So here I am trying again, one note at a time. Yeah, that was a lot better. I felt better about that too. I'm going to do that a couple more times just because, again, I'm practicing. That one didn't work out. This is really showing me this is what I would need to practice. Okay, so same thing as what we did on the interval measure, okay, is I'm going to take it slow in rhythm and just make sure I get the notes here. Okay, I'm at 45 still, and I'm just doing that first half of the measure, okay. Ya-da-da-da-da-da-dee, ba-ba-bee-ba-ba-ba-bee. I'll just try it a couple times at that tempo, see if I can get it consistently. 2, 3, yeah, I'm starting to feel better about that already. The first one wasn't so great, but I'm feeling a little bit better about it the more I do it. Pick up the tempo a little bit. 2, 3, and. And that was a little sloppy. Again, I'm feeling better about that. I'm going to go ahead and punch it up to 60, and this time I'm going to play the whole measure, okay? Again, the end of that measure is nothing really crazy, so I'm just going to go ahead and add that on. But now I'm at 60 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, and. 2, again. 2, 3. So really, those three measures, 27, 28, 29, that's kind of the gauntlet in here. Those are the hard ones, okay? This ending part, these last four measures, starting with measure 30, it's really pretty easy, even though there's a lot of notes in here. The grace note measure just down there, okay? The grace note measure. First thing I'm going to do is play it without the grace notes, and then you'll hear how easy that is. Again, I'm adding the first note of the next measure. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in those little grace notes now that I have my bass rhythm. 1, 2, 1. Do watch out for the accidentals in there. And for those of you who are more familiar, especially with some Baroque music out there, you'll recognize that actually just a turn, that little S-looking thing that you sometimes see over your Baroque solos. That's all that is. They just wrote the notes out instead of drawing in the little S. Okay? The last line, the first measure, measure 31, other than that first leap from the first note to the second note, it's just a chromatic scale. Okay? So nothing to worry about there. Again, make sure I have my notes. Again. Last one. And then the second to last measure, it's really just an arpeggio. Note to some of the brass players out there, something that was tripping me up here, and once the light bulb went off, it was fixed. But you want to look out here because your second note of measure 32, the concert A natural, might be second finger, might be second position. The thing you want to look out for is that second finger or second position note. It's the same fingering that you would use if your chromatic scale was going to keep going down. So in my case, G going down to F sharp is also second finger. And so I kept messing it up here, and rhythmically it wasn't working out. And I'm sitting here thinking, why is this not working out? I'm playing all the notes, and I realized I was playing all the notes, but I was also playing an extra note because I was keeping my chromatic scale going for one extra note just because the fingering was the same. Okay? Now, like I said, once I realized that's what I was doing, it was an easy fix. Okay? But something to look out for just because of how the fingers lie. And then watch out for the very, very, very last note. They have that little trick at the end. You have this big arpeggio up to forte, piano for the very last note. Okay? So what I'm going to do here, folks, again, I'm going to slow it back down to 45, and I'm going to take the last four measures. Okay? So not just the last line, but the last measure of the second to last line, starting in measure 30, okay? 1, 2, 3, and. That little at the end, watch out for that. Again, last four, ready, and. And there you have it, okay? Now, I'm going through this all pretty quickly, but like I said a little bit ago, this is something that you're probably going to want to practice individual parts of it every day, okay? Because it's not going to be something you just sit down in one day and, oh, yeah, great, now it's good to go, all right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play the whole thing through, beginning to end. I'm at 45 beats per minute, okay? So this is a slowed down version. Now, there might be some goofs in here. You know, like I said, it's still a work in progress. But what I'm working on right now is playing it all the way through beginning to end. So even if I do get a little mistake, I'm not going to stop, okay? What I will do, though, before I start is I'm just going to check those middle three measures and make sure I'm still good on those. So I'm starting in the third measure of the first line, measure 27. So, measure 25, 45 beats per minute, beginning to end. 2, 3, and. And I'm going to pick it up to 52 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3, and. And at tempo, 60 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3. There you have it. Guys, this is going to have more tricks in it than the others. I highly recommend that if you're not already working on this, once you're done watching this, get working on it, okay? And work on it a little today, a little tomorrow, a little the next day, all right? Don't be afraid to go at very slow tempos, okay? It is okay. As long as you're getting it to happen, it's happening. Now again, the tempo is supposed to be 60 plus, but if that's moving too fast for you, you may have to take the whole thing slow. Maybe at 60 plus, you have all these mistakes happening, but at 55, everything's okay. Play it at 55. Is it supposed to be 60? Yes. But what's better? Playing a little slow and getting everything right? Playing it at the right tempo and making a ton of mistakes, okay? So, this is the last variation. It's the last part of the etude. So after this, now we're just putting everything together, okay? So once you are feeling good about variation 3, you might want to go back and start reviewing some of the others. But that'll be next week's lesson. So good luck on your practicing. Hope everything goes well. And please don't be afraid to reach out to myself or your peers if you have any questions. Good luck.